Hey guys, my name's Chris, I live in Australia, and lo and behold, another tax is coming to Australia in July. It's proposed to come through. It's called the SSB tax, the Sweetened Sugar Beverages tax. So what is this tax? This tax is going to apply across to all non-alcoholic beverages that have sugar in them, and it's going to increase the cost of them by 20%. Now, Australia has a government that campaigned through saying that, we want to lower taxes when we get in, that we want to help people in this cost of living crisis that we're going through. A government campaigned on that, and they got through. But now they're adding in more taxes. So they got through, they're adding in more taxes. And Australia's already a country with plenty of taxes. We have a GST tax of 10%, which is on close to everything. As a consumer, you're buying this extra 10% we're paying goes straight to the government. We have alcohol taxes, huge amounts of alcohol taxes on. Just as an idea, if you buy a bottle of vodka, Smirnoff vodka in Australia, it's 3 times more currency converted than buying it in America, so triple the price. Very expensive. Tobacco, heavily taxed on tobacco in Australia. For those that can still afford to smoke, 65% of the retail cost of cigarettes or tobacco, 65% is government tax right now. Which is, of course, has led to the black market firing up. Now 1 in 7 cigarettes smoked in Australia are from the black market. So it's kind of opened up that whole caveat of things and problems with it. But yeah, there's taxes on everything. Then you've got income taxes, of course, just taxes on taxes on taxes in this country. Oh yeah, and a fuel excise tax. Did I mention that one? Now fuel has got a government tax, which is pumping the cost up even further as well. Taxes on taxes on taxes. If you point a stick at it, there's probably a tax for it. So for a government that campaigned on lowering taxes and for helping the cost of living, but let's focus on lowering taxes. For a government that focused on lowering taxes on their campaign to get in, well, why are they adding in more taxes? Why are they adding in a tax on sugar-sweetened beverages? So all beverages that are non-alcoholic are going to have an extra 20% tax applied across to them. That's on top of the GST tax that already applies across to these goods. So a 10% GST, then an extra 20% on sugar-sweetened beverages. So as of the 1st of July, we're going to see a 20% increase across to things like soft drinks, things like fruit juice, energy drinks. We're going to see an increase in cost of energy drinks, cordial, chocolate milk. Your iced coffee in the morning, you grab yourself a pie and an iced coffee, and you set yourself up for the day. Well, you know what, that iced coffee can have an extra 20% cost on top of it now from this new SSB tax. Even your flavoured mineral waters or sports drink like a Powerade or something like that, you have a big night out on the beers and you think, God, I'd really like a Powerade this morning to get me back on my feet. Well, the Powerade's going up, okay? It's 20% whacked on top of the cost of the Powerade. I don't recall, and help me recollect, guys, when the government was campaigning, did they talk about adding in this new tax? Did they talk about increasing all non-alcoholic beverages with sugar by 20%? Fruit juice, okay, your orange juice going up 20%, apple juice going up 20%, all your fruit juices going up 20%. Do you remember the government saying this before they got in on the election? So I sure don't. I don't remember this being in their election promises. I remember them saying that they're going to reduce taxes, not add more taxes on. Kind of gone a little bit backwards on what they were saying they were going to do. But from this new tax, over the first 2 years of this tax running, starting in July, unless someone absolutely blocks this one, but it looks like the government is hell-bent on taxing the Australian consumer even more, the working class of Australia getting more taxes applied to them. But it's going to raise, over the first 2 years, they're saying $1.4 billion in additional taxation revenue for them. And they're factoring in from the Parliamentary Budget Office, they're saying, well, we're expecting and forecasting from this that there will be a 20% reduction in people purchasing sugar-sweetened beverages. 20% reduction across the market, due to the price increase of 20% from the tax. So 80% of what's left is going to have that extra 20% on it, and the government's going to make $1.4 billion extra over the first 2 years from this. So the government campaign saying they're going to lower taxes, make things easier, lower the costs of living in this country, but instead going the other way, more taxes added in. SSBs are increasing 20%, and over the 10-year projection from the Parliamentary Budget Office. 10 years, they say they're going to raise $6.6 billion from this. Now, of course, there's always a new government department spun up for these kind of things, so the government department that'll be running through this new tax and monitoring and enforcing it and doing whatever they want to do with it, that's going to cost $98 million of taxpayer funding over the next 10 years. Almost $100 million. It's $100 million for a department to increase the cost of sugary drinks for us. Tell me, make that make sense for me. We're paying money for us to pay more money. Doesn't make sense, but they're doing it. The government's doing it. And they didn't campaign on this, they didn't tell us they were doing it. They're just doing it. So the tax only applies to non-alcoholic beverages that have sugar added into it. Now, chemical engineers and food processing engineers are already well ahead of this kind of curve. We've seen stuff like this happen over in the UK, and I think South Africa had a similar one go through as well. But chemical engineers and food processing engineers, they've got workarounds. Okay, so they can, instead of using sugar, they can add in artificial sweeteners, which bypasses this tax, because it's not sugar, it's chemically created in a lab to sweeten up the beverage for you. A couple of these kind of chemicals, I'll just read them out. So cyclamide, 30 times sweeter than sugar. Aspartame, 200 times sweeter than sugar. Asulfame potassium, 200 times sweeter than sugar, and sucralose, 600 times sweeter than sugar. So these are artificial sweeteners that they can put into these drinks, chemically created, lab manufactured, going into the drinks instead of sugar to bypass these new sugar sweetened beverages laws and taxes that the government's putting in. Now, Harvard Health Publishing did a release summarizing a report that came out in 2022. It was a study of 100,000 participants. And of these 100,000 participants, they were tracking across on artificial sweeteners, essentially. And out of these 100,000 participants, they found that artificial sweeteners led to 9% increase in cardiovascular diseases and up to an 18% increased risk of stroke. So currently, go have a read of the back of some of your favorite sugar-free beverages. Go have a read of the back and see how many sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, are added in to replace sugar from them. Maybe Coke Zero, go read the back of that. Any of the chemicals I mentioned there in that, maybe have a read. But that's what the government's incentivizing right now. They're incentivizing across for companies to pull out sugar and then to put artificial sweeteners and created chemically in labs into the drinks to bypass these laws. That's a byproduct of this. When governments make changes, companies do workarounds. Guys, if you can, once a week, just get outside, take a walk. That's what I do. I really enjoy it. It helps me decompress and wind down and get some perspective on life. Yeah, there we are, a little bit of positivity in the videos for once. Now, I'm not going to say that artificial sweeteners are healthy or not healthy. You know why? Because I'm not a doctor, not a health expert, okay? But what I do know is that this changes across to the sugar tax, this sugar sweetened SSB tax, is a punch in the guts for our farmers in Bundaberg, our cane farmers out there. Well, they're going to see a reduction in the need for sugar, a reduction in the sales. They're going to see a reduction, your Bundy ginger beer. Well, that's going to get hit with this tax, isn't it? It's got sugar in it. So yeah, the cane farmers, punch in the guts to our cane farmers in Bundaberg. All right, they're going to cop it here. Hasn't our government done enough flogging the farmers of this country? Look what they did in Victoria, the state government. I did a video on it not too long ago. Go watch it if you don't know, but they're just flogging our farmers. Flogging our farmers, they're cane farmers this time. There's always one group that this government's just absolutely flogging down. This time it's the entire Australian public, but also secondary impacts, cane farmers, all right, sugar farmers in this country. Parliamentary budget boards forecasting a 20% reduction across, but the other 80%, of course, guys, as I mentioned before, is going to have that extra 20% tax. Now, this extra 20% tax doesn't help the consumer, us, doesn't help the retailer, doesn't help the manufacturer, doesn't help the farmer, that's for sure. The only person that helps is the government. They're just helping themselves to our pockets. There's an extra tax added on. And keep in mind, there was already 10% GST on this. Now there's an extra 20% on top. 30% of taxes on your drinks, your non-alcoholic beverages. They've already taxed alcohol to the absolute shithouse in this country. Now they're coming for the non-alcoholic sweet drinks. Orange juice, that's already $5 a bottle right now, depending where you shop, but $5 a bottle for orange juice, call it. It's going to go up 20% overnight, extra $1 for a bottle of orange juice. Now you tell me, how does that help families give their kids a healthy breakfast in the morning? How is that helping in this cost of living crisis? How is making breakfast more expensive helping this country right now? And tell me this, help me understand, how does $6.6 billion being raised from the government over this tax over the next 10 years, $6.6 billion, how does that make a difference? How does it shift the needle one iota when this government over the next 10 years is going to get another $500 billion in debt? The debt's going to move up to $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years. And they're not cutting back. They're not reviewing anything to cut anything out. They're not managing their spending. They're just borrowing more and more and more and absolutely obliterating our dollar in this country. And we're the ones to pay. So tell me, what is increasing the price on sugary drinks? What's the point of doing it when they're just going to absolutely obliterate $6.6 billion versus $500 billion in extra spending from them, in debt, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? It's all just more strain for no gain. But, you know, tell me in the comments, answer in the comments below. Do you think the juice is worth the squeeze? Did you even know about this 20% tax before the election? Did they campaign on it? Did I miss something here? Why is this government making things so much more expensive? Why are they putting this extra strain on people, on families, on everyone? This cost of living crisis, more taxes. There's more taxes coming on, piling up, going on. How is it right? There's something wrong here. There's something wrong in this country. And you know what? They're gonna borrow another $500 billion over the next 10 years, and they turn around and say, but you know what? We raised $6.6 billion from taxing the consumers more on sugar drinks. Stupid, guys, absolutely stupid. This government is so disconnected. They have no idea where they're going, no concept of what they're doing, no vision for the future of this country. Anyway, guys, leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know what you think. Is the juice worth the squeeze?